So my name is Nicole Donnelly, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. The first company I started, so I used to be a professional snowboarder and had a ton of injuries from that, and then started my first company, grew it to more than 85 countries. And in that process, I fell down a lot as a leader. And so I did a lot of leadership education, and that's where I picked up the emotional intelligence stuff that I use with my daughter and has come in handy as we've experienced a lot of ups and downs since I first learned about my monsters that I'm going to share with you. And Anne so we have kids that are the same age. Anne and I went to junior high and high school together, so we've known each other for a really long time. And so when she started working on the Happy Camper stuff with me a little bit, she was interested and asked if I would come speak to the families here. And you'll see the context is in kids, but there aren't actually that many kids here today, and it's the same for adults too. So just, we can all be kids today for the purposes of this. Oh, and Sarah's picture would be up there. She's my child. This is a piece of art that I absolutely love from Burning Man, and this, to me, symbolizes like how adults, as we'll turn our backs on each other quite often, and the kids inside just want to connect. And if we can look at each other with that same expectation and innocence that we have for, a 2-year-old that throws a temper tantrum, we could have a lot more compassion for each other instead of as adults and just simply being a certain way. Because when a 2-year-old throws a temper tantrum, you don't think, oh, that kid's an asshole. They're just 2, and that's normal. And so for any emotional things that we experience, it's like that little kid inside of us is acting up. And if you can look at each other with that compassion and not label somebody as a certain way, it's really helpful. And also when you're dealing with doctors and they might be a certain way, if you can look at them like a little kid stuck in their position, you will have a completely different perspective on them. And it's also pretty disarming, so they're not so scary or omnipotent. And this is one of my favorite quotes, and also my daughter's favorite, and it's kind of fun to do The Impossible by Walt Disney. And I know you guys are in seemingly impossible situations at times, and it can be okay, and it can be fun when you're faced with challenges, depending on how you look at it and what you're going to get from the other side. These are the 6 basic emotional needs across the top, and the 6 monsters that come out when those needs are not met. And we all have the need to feel loved and connected. And the way that little kids will often want that affection is they'll climb on your lap, and they'll tug at you. They'll cling to your leg. And the way that adults get it, if you're in an office setting, they have candy on their desk. And those are people who really want emotional connection. And a lot of times it's physical connection as well. And so when somebody's behaving like the little clingy monster here, a lot of times they just need a little bit more attention. So while our natural instinct is to kind of back away and put even more space between that clingy person and ourselves, what they really need is more closeness. And the second one is fun and freedom. We need to create and have a good time. And Flit, our little buddy up there, that's me when I need to do the dishes. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go clean the toilet. That's more fun. And Flit can come out at any time when it's not fun and somebody's distracted, looking all around, because they're not having fun. They're not feeling that it's free. And so in the book, you'll see there's a little guy on rollerblades doing the dishes, and that's what my daughter would do to make it more fun. Or we put on some music and make it more fun. And if you think of the situations that you're in that aren't very fun, like anytime you can bring that to it, that's also another need that people have. So like Anne was saying that when Ethan has his infusions, he's sitting there with, a phone playing a game in one hand and, hooked up in the other hand. And that's how he gets through. And kids are so good at doing that, and not even thinking twice. The third emotional need we have is to feel in control of the situation and that everything's going according to plan. And the bossy monster will come out. And how many of you can relate to bossy? Yeah. You get a poke over there. Yeah. So the bossy monster comes out, and the bossy monster's like, I want to be in control, and I'm not in control right now. And I can imagine that comes out quite a bit when you're like at the hospital and in these situations. And Ann and I were having a conversation about this with a nurse that was not doing so well in getting to the veins. And it was a nurse that hadn't experienced her son before. And so she wanted to be in control of the situation, and then also questioning, like, how am I being the best advocate for my son? Because if I'm upset with his nurse, then that doesn't instill confidence in him, then he could get more upset. And so these little monsters, it's good to be aware when you feel them starting to come out. And again, if you look at it like these little kids, it's like this bossy monster wants to come out and is sitting on the table right here. And you can just recognize that and set them aside for a bit and get into a more productive space. Once you know that that's there, then you can take a deep breath and restate what you were going to say so that it's heard by the other party and maintain that calm. Because for the caretakers, the person who needs the caretaking, the more monsters that come out in the process, the harder it is for that person to really receive the care, that's needed. For support, we all need to feel helpful. We need to feel like we're doing something supportive of the other person. And quite often, when we're not feeling in control of ourselves, then it's that shy avoider that will retract and avoid the situations and not address them. And we have little mantras up here. And so that's that I'm helpful, I'm peaceful, I'm calm, and then you can take an action forward. Some people will turn more into bossy. Who goes into shy mode or avoids a situation? So we have a bossy and a shy right here. Oh, that's pretty normal. And so you can have compassion for him when he goes into that mode and, understand that he's not feeling peaceful and not feeling in control of the situation, and that's his way of dealing. We all have different ways. And then we all need to achieve and get the things that we want and feel unique, feel special, feel awesome. And when we don't feel that way, the bully comes out. And the bully can belittle other people. It can tell them that they're wrong. It can tell them that they're not good at their job. It can tell them they don't know what they're saying. So again, when speaking with doctors, it's really, and nurses, the people that are taking care of your loved ones, if the bully comes out and the bully is what's present in front of everyone, then the person on the other side is just going to see that and not really see the message or hear the message that you want them to. And so it's really important to acknowledge when you feel these things coming up, because you're going to go through all of these. Some might be more prominent than others, but you can set it aside for a moment and restate what you desire, what the outcome that you want in a situation is. And the last one is the clown. And you think of a class clown, and they don't really have competency so much, but they want to entertain, and they want to make others laugh. And what a leader does is they understand what's going on, they can learn and grow. And I know this is a big thing, like Anne has taken the lead in, she went to a technical class for 5 weeks so she could take her son's blood pressure at home legally as a certified person. So she then can lead in that situation, not feel helpless, not turn into a monster about it, or laugh and clown around about it, but she took it into her own hands, and she's like, well, if I have to take his blood pressure and get certified every single day or a few times a day, then I'm going to learn how to do it myself. And then she can be that leader for her family and in the care of her son by getting certified. And so she can take that on and feel empowered and satisfy one of her own emotional needs. Here's a little drama triangle. So this is a shortcut to disarming the monsters. And in the drama triangle, we've got the hero, the villain, and the victim. And the hero wants to save the day. And the coach, so this is something Donna and I have talked about, because the hero is like, for her son, like, I'm going to give you the meds, make sure you take all these. And the coach gets him to do it on his own, right? Yeah. And The coach is there to support the other person in succeeding on their own, and believes in the other person that they can do it on their own and doesn't need to come in and save the day. And the victim, I mean, that feels helpless, and it's a really disempowered state. And when you're feeling in victim mode, you can go into the creator and create something new. And when you're feeling in victim, it's usually like something that I want to create or do in my life is not happening. And so if you can recreate that in your mind over and over, like, this is what I want for my life, this is what I want for my loved ones. And this is really important when it comes to your family and friends and engaging them and supporting you the way that you want support. And if you're not getting the support the way that you want it, just keep on creating with them. Ask them to create with you to get that desired support network outcome. And I know, like with Anne, we talked about this and how when her son went to a new school, it had conversations to enroll the teachers, the people at the school, the principal, to have the life for her son that she wanted. So she was out there creating it and creating the type of treatment that she wants for her son on a daily basis. And then the villain. So the villain is the one that is seen as evil and makes others do things, and it has to be my way. And I know from the conversations in the room, too, that the doctors are seen as villains as well. And they are the ones that are able to help provide for you, and you can approach them as a challenger. You can challenge them to step up, you can challenge them to learn and grow, and if they're not willing to do that, you might need to find another one, and not let them stop you in creating the kind of support and environment that you want. But it's really important to notice when those things come out, to notice when you're feeling disempowered and where that's coming from. And this is my girl and we did the color run. And so we kind of talked about this, but like, how do you act? Like, thinking about it personally, how do you act in these moments? Actually, we were talking about this last night in regards to the kids too, is when your kid is kind of messing up, you see them messing up, like, do you ask them to step up? Do you coach them? Do you show them how? Or, do you come in and save the day? And it's the same, it's the same in all these different situations. I mean, you have many years of this coming up. And a lot of people just want to do the things for their kids, but if you support them and get them on their own, then they can do it, then they're feeling good about themselves. All right, we've got 5 ground rules for this Happy Camper, and you'll find the poster at the back of the book. But we have 5 ground rules. So when you're feeling these monsters come out, or you're noticing it in other people and you're getting really angry or upset, you can stop for a moment and get curious. First, get curious about yourself. Like, okay, what's going on here? What's being activated here? You can print this off from the website from happycamper.world. You can print off a paper, put it on your wall, put it on the back of your bathroom door, wherever you're going to see it on a regular basis, because you want to get to know yourself and the monsters that come up, and then you're going to want to know that for your loved ones as well, and notice it when it's coming up for them and get curious, like, oh, I wonder why they're acting this way. Because the second that you do that, you give yourself this space so that you don't have to react, and it's a moment to calm down and to think about it, and you can not take it personally in that moment. It's just so brief, but it's that difference between taking a conscious action and reacting. And in here, like, how many go into react mode? Like, the second you're upset, yeah, a lot of people, you go into react mode, you don't stop for a moment. Like, that's our nature, is you say something, I'm going to say something back. And it just goes back and forth, and it's not very productive. And when you're in those super tense moments too, like in the hospital, and you want the attention, you want them to do what you say, it's really important to just take a moment and get curious what's going on for the other person. And nobody's wrong in these situations. Everybody expresses their feelings differently. And if you think again about the 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old that's obstinate in their way, like, they're not really wrong, they're just experiencing life differently. And no blame, no excuses. So it's not anybody's fault. And then we take responsibility, be kind about it, being kind to yourself, and be kind to others and take responsibility. So in a moment, if you do lose it, like, has anybody not ever lost it? No? Yeah. So you lose it, and then you have that moment. You can take responsibility. You can apologize for losing it, and you can reset. And the beautiful thing is, every day, every second, we have the opportunity to reset. We have the opportunity to have a do-over, and you can even ask for that. You're like, can I have a do-over right now? This is what I really meant to say, and I'm gonna apologize for that reaction. We want a do-over. And with my daughter, we've done do-overs since she was little, and you can ask for it for yourself. And as a parent, I would prompt her on a do-over. Like, would you like to do that over, sweetie? And that's a kind way, I guess, depending how you say it, but that can be a kind way of, initiating this, going back to creating something that you want to have happen, as opposed to this like reactive situation back and forth and fighting, because that's not fun for anybody. All right, villain and the challenger, we'll go over this again. And think about this for yourself. Like, what do you do when somebody forgets to do what you ask them to? Or doesn't do what you ask them to? Or refuses to do something? Because I heard stories yesterday about doctors refusing to do something, refusing to take a test, or order the blood tests. And so then how do you act in that situation? Because they're being the villain, well, you can be the challenger. And advocate for yourself, advocate for your loved ones about how to step up to the next level. And doctors like to be smart, right? They want to be seen as smart, and they don't want to be seen as knowing less than their patients. And so if you think of that 2-year-old again, you're telling the 2-year-old that they're wrong or that they don't know. And imagine how a 2-year-old's going to react to that. Yeah, you get that direct opposition back and forth, and that's just not productive. And that's why that scientific conference, that's such a good opportunity for doctors to learn also, especially if they're going to be long-term caring for you. Then that's something you're giving them. You're giving them an opportunity to learn. You're giving an opportunity to be an expert, even more of an expert in something. And ground rules again. Get curious. Number 1. So then if you're in that situation, you get curious of like, I wonder why this doctor is not doing what I ask. And you might even have a conversation about it, and you'll have a different kind of conversation with them than they probably ever had before. If you get curious on what's going on in their life, maybe they just had a fight with their spouse before they came to work, and that happens at school with my daughter. She comes to me and she takes the Happy Camper poster off the wall and she's like, Mama, can we talk about this? And this person, said these things to me and did this. And so then we talk about like, well, did you find out what happened before they came to school? Because most of the time you're meeting people after they've already had a day, a morning, or something happen. And on the same, in the same way, they should be curious, the doctor should be curious about what's going on for you, and you guys with each other. Like, what's going on for you this morning? I mean, you could have woken up in a bad mood or had a bad dream or whatever. There's all these things, because we're human beings, that impact how we show up in the world from moment to moment. And be kind to yourself about it and take responsibility. And we have the victim and the creator. And again, it's these 2-year-olds, like the little kids that are just reaching out. And little kids think everything's possible, right? They're so optimistic. And Donna was saying that if her son had had things happen when he was a teenager and had shown, if he had gotten sick as a teenager, it would have been a different reaction. And he probably would have been really upset and not able to handle it as well. But since that was the life that he knew, there was no difference. There was no before. That's just how his life was. And so, that's how it is. And he wasn't going to be in opposition to it. And he wasn't being the victim. He's still out there every day creating the life that he wants. And I love that story. I mean, and when you meet Jonathan, like, he's such a bright light and bright person, and I didn't know all of the details of that story, and you wouldn't ever know by meeting him. And in these situations, you can be this for other people. So my stepbrother passed away. It'll be 2 years in August, and he was 28 years old. And it was a motorcycle accident. And so it was sudden, and he had been living with my dad and his wife. And the loss that everybody experienced at that time was so great, and the way that everyone dealt with emotions was so different. And they would get upset, and I ended up being at the hub of that, so I could take on those, like I could take whatever came at me because I have these tools. And so however their grief and sadness surfaced, I was able to deal with it effectively and help everybody in that situation emotionally. And we got a lot closer through that. And I mean, I'm 39 years old, and that I was like 37 at the time, and that my dad gave me a hug and told me he loved me, and that was the first time in my life that I'd had that experience with my dad. And it was because I had these tools to be able to deal with everybody's emotions and help them through a really challenging time. And so there's the logistics of everything that has to go on too, but just to be there and be emotionally supportive no matter what's going on, it can make such a big difference for people. And if you can just set your monsters aside and reach out and be that compassionate person, no matter the challenges. And if you have a 2-year-old, you get challenged every second of every day. You know, like you really get that. And it can be exhausting. So at least as adults, maybe we have a break in that emotion. And you get to the point where you have emotions. Like I certainly tear up over all of this, but my emotions don't have me. They don't control me. They don't run my life anymore. And they sure did when I was younger. And for each one of these areas, we have the physical aspect, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And there's so much more in depth to go. And in this little book, there's a bit more. We have articles on the website on happycamper.world where you can learn how to manage from these different angles. You get the self-awareness and social awareness, which is kind of what's going on around you. And then you kind of learn how to manage yourself in these situations. And it is like going to the gym. You're not going to have a six-pack by showing up one day and doing one workout. You have to do it every day, and you'll get your emotional six-pack. And then you'll be able to manage any relationship in your life so much easier. And it is like learning a foreign language. So you'll be able to go to Mexico and be fluent. You know, you'll be able to go to the hospital and be fluent with your communications with people. And it flows, and it's so much easier when you can set your monsters aside and be kind and be responsible. Then the responsives that you get for people, the kind of conversations, the depth of conversations that you have, it absolutely transforms. And so there's our little monsters again. Does anybody have any questions on this or any real life scenarios you want to talk about? I see some grins over here. Do you want to tell me where you see it show up for other people in your life? Now your face is all red. So we're being shy. Good for teenagers? Yeah. And being compassionate with them.
Well, I'd say for me and my mom, like, because I am 18, almost 19, so I'm like, sure, like going out and like experiencing life, and my mom kind of has a hard time with that because she's so used to like having me like with her all the time because I was like so sick when I was younger, and now that I'm like healthier, I'm like wanting to go out and do stuff, and my mom's like, what about me? And I'm like, what about me?
Yeah, so we have an 18-year-old who's wanting to go out and experience life, who was sick when you were younger. And then we have mom who's like, my baby, right?
But it's not that, it depends on situations.
Yeah.
It's more of the, like, I told her several times, if you just let me know what you're doing, just for 1 second, just text me, let me know, and I will be fine. If you don't, then I'll put it up the worries.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we bring up.
Which this is an age-old story, right? This is mom worries, kid doesn't communicate. I have this same thing with my daughter all the time, too. I mean, she's 12, almost 13. And I read this great article, too, where it talks about the parent being the edge of the swimming pool, and your kids go off, and they swim a length, and they come back. And they know that you're there, and you're steady. And then they go off, and then they come back, and you're still there. and they can hang on, and you're the steady wall. And they're going to go back and forth. They might go off and swim around a bit longer before they come back. And the communication part is really important, and I think that feels like a mutual respect thing. And it's so normal for kids to not communicate to the level that the parents want. And in that situation, it's the parent being the communication you want to see, and consistently being the communication you want to see, and eventually she'll catch up. But that's the thing about kids too, is like, and teenagers. My niece is 17, and I see this so much too. The desire to communicate with parent is not so high. The desire to communicate with friends is super high. So you're like, why can you text your friends 20 times and me not once, right? Yeah. It's like, because at this point, mom's not as important as the friends are, and not as influential, and that's how it is. And so there is this certain, there are the consequences that can happen when not communicated with, to that setting clear boundaries, but also like just being kind. Like, when you're thinking about this stuff is going to happen. It's not going to stop happening, and you have to keep being the person that you want your daughter to be, like, consistently. Like, even if kids aren't cleaning up messes, the parent that actually picks something up will set that example for the child instead of just constantly telling them to do it. If you do it for them, with them, then they see you doing that, and it takes a while for that to show up in their lives, but eventually they do what you do, not just what you say. And kids take a while to catch up, and it will happen. And so you just have to manage your own monsters. Be kind to yourself, and you didn't do anything wrong. She still loves you. Yeah, you know that. And so in those situations, you can get curious, like, hey, what's going on for you? Like, now that we know this level of conversation, what's going on for you? And get curious about her life. And I get it when it comes to safety. Trust me, my daughter and I go back and forth on this too. We had a question in the back.
Oh, I was just saying it would help for like my 14-year-old son. Doesn't have aHUS.
Yeah.
And when his monsters come out, my monsters come out, and they don't mix very well.
So we have mom and 14-year-old son with monsters that are like fighting each other. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then like I noticed, like you just said something that made like good sense, because you said even the mom that goes around and picks something up, eventually the kids will pick out or catch on. My husband is like, why are you always doing that? Why do you not just make them do this and make them do that and make them? I'm like, because I don't want to make them do it. I want them to want to do it.
Yeah, and so a way to get kids to do things with you too, like turn on some music, make it fun for them, and be like, okay, we're going to do this together. So then it's a bonding activity. So we do that with dishes too, because the question is about like how to get them to do what you want them to do, because you can fight them on it, and also you're not their maid. And it's not your job to pick up after them, and it is your job to set the example and be with them in the way that you want them to be. And so how would you want them to be with a partner, with their friends, with a roommate? And you can talk about it like that too, is this is setting you up for success in life, so that when I'm not around and you're out there doing your thing, that you are a wonderful human being to live with. That you're not stinky and leaving your stuff all over. Yeah, so, and if you put this up on the wall too, so you can put this little poster on the wall, you can print one out from happycamper.world, it's free there, you can download it. There's a psychology change that happens when somebody sees something and identifies it. So if your son looks at this, if you just have it on the wall and through osmosis, he's gonna absorb this. And it's reason that sign language is so effective with little kids is when you say no, when you sign no, their brain doesn't pose the opposition right away. They have to understand that this is no, and so there's an extra step in processing that makes them understand no and own it as their own, as opposed to you saying no, them saying yes. And then you just fight back and forth. And so when you have something like this that's visual on the wall, you can do the same thing for yourself. And you can look at it and you can be like, oh, that's how I'm being right now. I get that. And your kid can do the same, and he can go to the wall. He might just be passing by. Like I said, put it like where you can see it when he's going to the bathroom. And then he'll just sit there and stare at it. We have it on the back of our bathroom wall, or back of the door, because you can see that. And any guests that come in, they see it. And then you start to relate to it and you understand, and it's a thing that happens subconsciously just by having it up in your space. And that's the importance of putting this, like, cut the back cover off the book if you want to. If you want a small version, have it somewhere that you can see it all the time. Bring a poster in, print it out, have it in your doctor's office. Have it where you're having treatment, if they have a wall. When you're having blood drawn, a lot of times they have comics up there. Have a little poster, and I will send the doctors a book if you want this for the office. Because just by sitting there looking at it, you'll understand it more. You'll understand yourself more, and they will too. So we've had it on our wall for probably 7 years, the homemade version. And every time we reference it, it just, like, it becomes natural. I would take it off the wall and put it on my desk when I was dealing with some difficult emails and look at it. I'm like, okay, I need to do this, or I need to say that, so that I get, so that it doesn't sound like a reactive email. When somebody says you're doing a bad job, you need to prove yourself, and don't talk to me. Like, how do you deal with that? And so I get out my little poster and deal with it effectively. And this is a Brené Brown quote that I love. Connection is the energy that's created between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. And I know that's why we're all here in the room today, is for feeling connected. And when you go to any of your providers, like, you want to feel connected with them as well. And if you can bring this sort of emotional intelligence to the conversation, you're going to get more connection with them. And they're going to feel more connected with you. They are going to be more vested in your care when they feel cared about by you too. So I hope this was helpful for everybody. And if you have any more questions, comments, I'll be around. I also have a few more books if you have more kids or doctors that you want to take them to. There's some in the back and you can grab one. So thank you.